So, after such an inspirational story, and now you have to sit through 12 minutes, maybe 13, of science. Do I have a clicker? Yeah, thank you. Welke? De grote groene. Grote groene. A story about... before I tell you the story about science, I will first tell you a Greek myth. I'll tell you why later. We'll start with the myth. Once upon a time, there was a king. The king was named Midas. And Midas wasn't really an impressive king. No one was gonna remember him after he died, except he was granted a wish. Now the wish was from Dionysus, the god Dionysus. Dionysus, on the other hand, was super powerful. So if Dionysus grants you a wish, you know you can ask for basically anything you want. And King Midas, he didn't even need to think very long. The first thing he said was, I wish for the touch of gold. I wish that if I touch something, it turns into gold. And he went outside and he said, well, let's see if the wish works. So he saw a tree, touched the branch of a tree, and not just, sorry, I have slides to go with this, not just the branch turned gold, but the entire tree turned gold. So Midas was excited. So he plucked a flower, and the flower turned into gold. And Midas was starting to get all giggly, so he went back to his palace, opened the doors. Doors were both gold, went to his staircase, touched the staircase. The entire staircase was a glistening golden staircase, and Midas was just overjoyed. He realized he was going to be the richest man alive. And in his head, he was already planning a party, and he would invite all the important people, the kings and the gods, and everyone would come and they would say, have you been? Have you been to one of Midas's parties? It's great. They serve the food and the drinks on golden platters, and they have golden cups. The servants wear golden aprons. Everything is gold. Midas was so happy. So he grabs an apple, wants to take a bite, and he almost breaks off his tooth. The apples turned into gold. And all of a sudden, Midas realizes what he's done. So he sees a loaf of bread, tries to kind of like swing it over, but he barely touched it, but he touched it, it turned into gold, and he can't eat it. So his joy turns to deep, deep sorrow because he realizes that he's going to starve to death, and he starts screaming and crying. He falls to the floor. His daughter comes in, the daughter who he loves so much. And she says, Papa, what's wrong? And he says, hold me, my dear daughter, for your father is about to die. And he embraces his daughter, and his daughter turns into gold. So this is obviously a very tragic story. And you might wonder, why I decided to tell you that, except that I didn't want to bore you to death with a scientific story 12 minutes long. But there's a reason why I wanted to tell you this story and what it has to do with disruptive technologies that are around and that are coming. The reason is that you and I, we are all King Midas. Now, we might not like to think that we would be stupid enough to wish for something like the touch of gold, but the way science looks at us, the way science looks at our brains, the way science looks at human decision making, we are actually not that much better than Midas. We are actually very, very poor decision makers. We do not see ahead very well. The first and probably even ever psychologist to get a Nobel Prize was Daniel Kahneman. And he got it because he'd proven for economics, though. That's why he got the Nobel Prize. There's no Nobel Prize for psychology. He'd proven that, he gave scientific grounding to the fact that we have no real capacity to make rational decisions. And this is huge. This is big, because that's not actually something that we think is true, right? We think that we make good decisions, but that's not really what we do. Maybe you recognize it. Yesterday I was on the couch and I had a big bar of chocolate. I know I was thinking to myself, will I or will I not reach my goal of being slim and fit for summer if I sit on the couch and eat this big bar of chocolate? I gave it a good 2 seconds and then I thought, yeah, we're good. Summer's 2 months away. I'll go to the gym tomorrow. I didn't go to the gym tomorrow. I'm here, so I'm not going to the gym again. Um, so this is the kind of decision makers that we are. So what's wrong with us? What's wrong with Midas? Why can't we make good decisions? The reason is that evolution has made our brain optimal for certain tasks. So what we're good at is tying our shoelaces. And what we're good at is recognizing faces. And actually, we should be impressed. You might think, oh, you know, my 7-year-old, he can tie his shoelaces. But it's actually a super complicated thing to do. And we do it with such ease. For us, it's so easy. It's so natural. We can even like talk and have a sandwich at the same time. Well, not talking and having a sandwich is complicated for different reasons. But we can do a lot of things at the same time because we have very, very complex brains that they work very, very well. And it's like a network. And it's super complicated. And it's very advanced what we can do with our brains. But there's one other thing that we should know about our brains. It's not optimized for math. We're not very good at calculus. We don't make predictions into the future very well. Take a simple pocket calculator and ask it what's the square root of 500. The pocket calculator will give you an answer in, I don't know, a millisecond. It'll take most of us, I hope, a good minute to figure it out, if we even figure it out. So our brains aren't made for long-term calculus. It's like trying to eat soup with a fork. You can get some soup on, you know, we can do 2 + 2, but once things get more complicated, once there's a lot of factors that we have to take into calculation, when we have to think ahead and we have to think a couple of steps ahead, and then there's not just us, but there's other things that can, you know, influence the situation. Should I or should I not build this bridge? You can think of so many factors that you should take into account, but our brains aren't very good at it. So you might think, well, we're not doing that bad, are we? I mean, okay, we're not very good decision makers, maybe, but we're here. We all have warm clothes. We have a roof above our head. We have good medicine. So a lot of things are going well, right? We're doing well. But what we're not looking at is that our prosperity and our wealth and the fact that we're doing well is also leaving mass destruction in its wake. Mass destruction. At this moment, every minute, we are chopping 40 football fields of rainforest. That's just an example. 40 football fields per minute. So by the time I end this 12 or 13-minute talk, who has a calculator? Because this is 12 times 480 football fields of rainforest have been chopped. We need rainforests. They are the lungs of the earth. We know this. Why are we still chopping the lungs of the earth? We are popping antibiotics like they're Smarties. We're feeding them to our cows, to our chickens, to our pigs. They're in our water, they're in our food, they're everywhere. We know that if we continue to do this, that we will become resistant, and that a simple toe infection or an ear infection of your child can be lethal. We know this. Why are we still doing this? We are overeating. The number one cause of death is obesity or obesity-related disease. We need to change our eating habits. We know this. Why are we still doing this? We know this. What's wrong with our decision-making skills? I was in the shop a week ago and I saw a €3 t-shirt and I thought it would look cute on my kid. And I bought the t-shirt. Now I know that a t-shirt cannot cost €3 if it's been produced in a fair way. I know that somewhere in the line, most likely a school-deprived, underaged Bangladeshian kid has been putting the shirt together. I know this, and still I buy the shirt. So am I a bad person? Are we all bad people? Or are we just very, very bad decision makers? So this is why we're worried. And now we get back to what you thought I was going to be talking about, disruptive technology. This is why we're worried. King Midas is going to have pretty powerful tools in his hands shortly. Some of them he already has. So King Midas, we're going to give him nanotechnology. And he can do anything he wishes with it. And we're going to give him genetic engineering, designer babies. And he can do anything with it he wishes. And we're going to give him artificial intelligence. And he can do anything he wishes. Especially artificial intelligence is something that we're worried about. Very worried about. Because artificial intelligence means autonomous weapons. Now, what do you think King Midas is going to do with autonomous weapons? What do you think King Midas is going to do with automatic surveillance systems? So that you know, that everyone knows what you've eaten, how you treat your kids, where you shop, if you run the red light. What do you think King Midas is going to do with social media? What is King Midas already doing with social media? What has King Midas already done with social media? So this is why we're worried. You okay. We're worried because King Midas is going to have very powerful tools in his hands. And we're worried because we do not know how in the world we're going to improve his decision-making skills. So there's one thing that we can think of. There's one idea that we're having and that we're exploring as scientists, and that's the idea that artificial intelligence, the very thing that we're very worried about, can also help us out. Because artificial intelligence, it has a spoon. Remember that I said it's like trying to eat soup with a fork? Artificial intelligence has a spoon. It can actually calculate a lot of things for us, and it can look into the future, and it can be super rational and super objective. So it can be like our external brain that we could use and that we could calculate, that we could use to calculate the way we want to go. But there's one catch. Someone has to program the artificial intelligence. Someone has to actually put human values and ethics and what we think is important and society that we think is worth pursuing into the artificial intelligence. So who's going to do that? Because scientists, they're King Midas. Politicians, they're King Midas. Business people, they're King Midas. We're all King Midas. So we're in this pickle where King Midas is the only one who can actually develop artificial intelligence and put it to good use, but he's also very flawed in his thinking. And this is an open ending, I'm sorry to say. We don't have the solution yet. We just don't. We don't know it yet. We're working on it. That's the positive note. We're thinking about it. We're doing the science, but it's tough. And we don't really know that we're going to have a happy ending. So the one thing that I honestly think and hope and believe is that we will not end up like King Midas, that we will find a way to be better thinkers. And my request or my to all of you is think with us, especially if you're in a big business or if you're just doing life as usual. What would make you be keen to even want to be something other than King Midas? What would trigger you to actually want to make decisions that will benefit the long term, that will make you think in future steps, instead of just doing what feels good here and now?
Josephine?